good evening, namaste, and welcome to the Festival of Bharat. My name is Sharan Citti, and I'll be your host for this program. Joining us again for an interview is Dr. Ankita Dutta. She was here speaking about the Northeast and its Ramayan traditions last time during the interview. Dr. Ankita ji, thank you so much again for joining us. It's so good to have you here. Namaste.
Namaste. Thank you. Thank you so much.
Dr. Datta, now it's the festivities time, and in the Northeast, you have your own different types of celebrations that are lined up from November to January. It's a very colorful season. So let me begin with Manipur, like we did last time, where Sanatana Dharma still has its presence and has a very glorious past, which you covered last time during the interview. Now, can you tell us more about the Vaishnava Parampara in Manipur and how even today it continues to influence the cultural life and the social life in Manipur?
Yes, definitely. Yeah, and I mean, much of Northeast India, as I said earlier in my last lecture series, much of Purvottar Bharat, it has served as a perfect, I would say, a perfect laboratory for the church. But there are many sections of people here who have still been able to hold on to their culture and traditions, and most importantly, their faith and belief systems. And the state of Manipur, particularly the Imphal Valley, stands out as a beautiful example of the same. And when I now talk about the history of Manipur, the Kingdom of Manipur, it was a neighbor and ally of the Shan Kingdom of Upper Burma, which was known as Pong in the ancient times. And it was formed as a result of the amalgamation of several independent principalities under the leadership of one Nongda Lairen Pakhangba. Nongda Lairen Pakhangba, who was the king and who belonged to the Ningthoja Salai. Salai means clan. There is one author, Pandit N. Khelchandra Singha, who has opined that the word Meiti, the Metis of Manipur, we have heard, the word Meiti, it eventually came to be used to refer to the people of the Manipur Valley. And but this word Meiti, it was originally applied only for the Ningthojas. The people who belong to the Ningthoja clan. And it was after the formation of the Confederacy of the Salais and its subjugation by the Ningthojas that the word Meite or Mite, it became the common nomenclature for all the people inhabiting the Manipur Valley. And commonly, in the ancient times, Manipur was commonly known to the outside world as Meite Lepak and Poiren Namthak Saronpung. And Manipur formed an important cultural link between India on the one hand and today's Southeast Asia on the other. It was referred to by different names by different groups of people, like it was referred to as Kathe by the Burmese, it was referred to as Mekhali by the Ahoms. Manipur has also been referred to as Kanglepak, Sana Lebak, or Metrabak in a few ancient texts, such as Pombi Luauba, Panthoibi Khongul, etc., which are all written by Metis scholars. And with the gradual popularity of the Vaishnava Parampara in the Imphal Valley, it was during the reign of a king called Pamheba. So during the reign of King Pamheba, the Vaishnava Parampara became popular in the Manipur Valley. And Kanglepak soon came to be known as Manipur. And it has its roots in the Sanskrit language, of course, because Mani means jewel and Pur means land in Sanskrit. And there is a popular Vedic belief as well that the valley of Manipur was once submerged deep underwater. And it was only when Bhagwan Shiv had pierced the hill Chingnunghuk, the name of the hill was Chingnunghuk, with his trishul, a hole was created which helped to drain the water out, and the Manipur Valley finally became habitable. So this is the belief which is still prevalent. And as a mark of celebration of this happy event, Bhagwan Shiv, together with a host of various other Devis and Devtas, performed a dance which is believed to have been the Lai Haroba dance form that is still popular in Manipur. And Bhagwan Vishnu was overwhelmed at the beauty of this land and Bhagwan Shiv's Lai Haroba dance. So Bhagwan Vishnu then sprinkled the Manipur valley with sparkling and precious gems. Okay, so from here comes the name Manipur, and therefore the worship of Vishnu in the form of Adishesh or Sheshnag, which is identified as Pakhangba in the Métis pantheon, it has been a popular form of worship among the people of Manipur since the ancient times. And there is a district in Manipur which is known as Bishenpur or Bishnupur, and it is hailed as the cultural and religious capital of Manipur. And the name of this district, Bishenpur or Bishnupur, its name has been derived from Vishnu or Vishnu. The Shakta cult of Ma Durga, it is also widely prevalent in Manipur among different sections of the Métis. And when we also read the travelogues written by the Chinese Buddhist pilgrim Huan Sung in the 7th century, in his travelogues also we can find several references of Manipur in the context of the kingdom of Kamrup, that is present day Assam. And it was in the 15th century, after Pakhangba came to be known as Manipur. So in the 15th century, it was Gaudiya Vaishnavism of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, which became immensely popular in Manipur. And this was the popularity of Gaudiya Vaishnavism was a result of the efforts of one king, King Bhagyachandra, who along with his daughter, King Bhagyachandra, along with his daughter Bimbavati Devi, they visited Navadvip and they established a temple in this place which was dedicated to Govinda or Bhagwan Krishna. And this strand of Bengal's Gaudiya Vaishnavism, it continues to influence the cultural and social life of the people of Manipur even today. And one of the best manifestations of this strand of Gaudiya Vaishnavism can be it is best seen in the traditions of Nath Sankirtan in Manipur, Manohar Sai, Krishna Ras Leela, etc. So
right, what a beautiful story that is. Thank you for giving us that overview of what seems to be a very interesting interview ahead. Now, you mentioned the Metes of Manipur, and according to you, the Metes of Manipur have or are known to preserve Hindu Dharma more in contrast to, say, the Nagas or the Kukis. So, why do you say this?
Yeah, so now here the geography also has something to do with this, because geographically speaking, Manipur is surrounded by hills on all the sides, and there is a valley in the center. In Manipuri, this valley is known as the Kongba. So it is surrounded by hills on all the sides, and there is the fertile valley in the center. But the land area of the valley is hardly 8%. It is merely 8% of the total land area of the state. Now, going back to history, it was after the Treaty of Yandabu that was signed in the year 1826 that the Kingdom of Manipur, which was then ruled by Raja Jai Singha, it was annexed into the British Empire. So after the signing of the Treaty of Yandabu in 1826, Manipur was annexed into the British Empire. So formally after that, it came under the British rule as a princely state. This was in the year 1891. In today's context, in present day Manipur, the three most important ethnic groups who inhabit present day Manipur, they are the Hindu Métis, who are primarily concentrated in the valley, and they are the most dominant numerically. And the Christian Naga communities, such as the Kabui Nagas, the Tangkhul Nagas, the Khoirao Nagas, Maring Nagas, etc. They are the Christian communities, and they are mainly the residents of the hills. And the Kukis. The Kukis of Manipur are relatively smaller in number. There are many communities among the Kukis like Thado, Mar, Vaipe, Gangte, Sinte, Zo, etc. But and almost all groups of the Nagas and the Kukis in Manipur, they have adopted Christianity as their religion. And the increasing popularity of Christianity in Manipur, it can be understood from the fact that today it is the second fastest growing religion in the state. As per the census data of 2011, the Christian population in the state accounted for about 35% of the total population. And besides, there are Marwaris, Bengalis, Biharis, Punjabis, and various other communities who reside in different areas across Manipur. Now, coming to the Métis. May, the word May, it means man, and Te, T-E-I. Te means the worshippers of a god, of a god whose name is Sanamahi. And Sanamahi is believed to be the chief creator, the chief creator of the universe. And the Métis are probably the only significant ethnic group in entire Purvottar Bharat outside Assam, besides the Apatanis of Arunachal Pradesh as well, that has strongly resisted the evangelist missions of the church. And because the Métis are primarily concentrated in the valley, and the valley is being adequately safeguarded by the mountain ranges, it is still not easily accessible for outsiders. And this has also been one of the important reasons why the Métis have been able to preserve their own distinct cultural traditions, their own distinct art, music, and dance forms from cultural appropriation by any foreign force. The Hindu Métis of Manipur, they worship the Tulsi plant, they revere Sanamahi. Among many communities of the Métis, Bhagwan Sanamahi is also referred to as Lining Tho Sanamahi or Sidaba Mapu. So these are the different names by which Bhagwan Sanamahi is referred to as, and he is considered to be the chief protector and savior of the people. They are ancestor worshippers, and the Métis, therefore, they share much in common with the Thai Ahom community of Upper Assam. The Buranjis are the historical texts of the Ahoms, and in these Buranjis also, like in the Tumkhungya Buranji of the Ahom kings, we can find several references of matrimonial alliances between the Ahoms and the Métis. I mean, they share much in common. The Métis also share much in common in terms of their cultural traditions and festivals with the Kachins, the Boro community of Assam, and as well as the Singpos. Yes.
Right. Thank you so much for sharing that. Now, since we are talking about the Métis of Manipur, one of the biggest festivals that the community celebrates is Ningol Chakoba, which is around the same time as Deepavali is, or Diwali. Yeah. Can you tell us more about the Vedic origins of this beautiful festival?
Yes. Yes, definitely. Ningol Chakoba is one of the most important and biggest festivals of the Métis community of Manipur. And Ningol Chakoba, in the Métis language, Ningol means a daughter. Daughter means irrespective of whether she is married or unmarried, Ningol means a daughter, whereas Chakoba implies invitation for a lunch in her maternal home. So Ningol is the daughter, and Chakoba means inviting the daughter for a lunch in her maternal home. And yes, it coincides with Diwali. Generally, it is celebrated annually 2 days after Kali Puja, and it coincides with Bhaiya Dooj and Govardhan Puja in North India. It also coincides with Bhau Beej in Western India, Bhai Phota in Bengal and Orissa, and around the same time when Yamadutya is also celebrated in a few parts of southern India, etc. And somewhere Ningol Chakoba, I feel it also shares a close resonance with the festival of Raksha Bandhan. And this year Ningol Chakoba is going to be celebrated in Manipur on the 5th of November. And one of the most interesting aspects that I came across in my field work is that this festival is also observed nowadays with equal fanfare by the Métis Pangans or Métis Pangals, who are the Manipuri Muslims. so Ningol Chakoba is also celebrated nowadays by a small section of the Meitei Pangals or Manipuri Muslims, and the ancestral roots of these Manipuri Muslims in Manipur, they date back to the time of King Khagemba. And the Manipuri Muslims or the Meitei Pangals, they are a numerically small but a quite significant section who are settled largely in the Imphal Valley, besides a scattered population residing in Assam's Barak Valley, Tripura and Nagaland as well. They have adopted Meitei language as their mother tongue, and their customs and traditions such as food habits, their sense of dressing, the festivals they celebrate, they are not very much different from the Hindu Meiteis overall. And the Kabui Nagas also, the Kabui Nagas who are largely Christian, they also celebrate Ningol Chakoba in much the same way as that of the Meiteis. So now, since Ningol means a daughter and Chakoba means invitation for a lunch in her maternal home, it is a festival of the celebration of the maternal line of what I would say, maternal line of familial affection. And it is a reflection of the unique cultural heritage and traditional ancestry of Manipur. Now, coming to the origins, according to some ancient Manipuri literary sources, we can come across this fact that Ningol Chakoba started during the period of Chakme Singme. Chakme Singme in Manipuri means the before the annual crop harvest. When goddess Jamuna, she invited her brother Yamraj, who is the Vedic deity of death, for a feast. And this festival is also known by the name of Hyange Nini Panba. In certain areas of Manipur, it is known as Hyange Nini Panba, and it is observed around the same time as Deepavali and Govardhan Puja, as I said, in late October, early November, on the second lunar day of the Manipuri month of Hyange. And it is somewhat similar to the Bhagini Hastha Bhojanam celebrations of South India. The Meiteis, they celebrate their own version of Deepavali by decorating a pot full of rice, which is called Chengfu, and this pot is worshipped as Devi Lakshmi. The origins of Ningol Chakoba have also been traced to the 4th century AD, when one of the Manipuri kings, whose name was Poireton Khuntokpa, when Poireton Khuntokpa, who had many sisters, and the king, Poireton Khuntokpa, he was invited for a meal by all his sisters together on the same day every year as a mark of Piba Chakoba. Piba means son in Manipuri. Ningol means daughter, whereas Piba means son in Manipuri. And the king was invited by all his sisters on the occasion of Piba Chakoba. Now, but with time, it increasingly became difficult for the king to attend all their invitations on the fixed date. So he decided to invite all his sisters, including Rani Laisana, on a day and date of his own choosing, for a multi-course delicious lunch that was prepared at his royal household. And the king had also given each of them some gifts, like a bunch of homegrown bananas, vegetables, chahao. Chahao is a sweet-smelling Manipuri white rice, and a hand-spun sarong or shawl as gifts to all his sisters. And hence it was from now onwards that Piba Chakoba came to be known as Ningol Chakoba, which is celebrated in honor of the eternal love between brothers and sisters. And Ningol Chakoba became especially popular in 19th century Manipur during the reign of this king whose name was Maharaja Chandrakriti. And this distinctive practice, this festival, it has now become an inseparable part of Manipuri society and culture. And the worship of a local Devi, whose name is Ima Panthoibi, the worship of this Devi forms an integral part of Ningol Chakoba. And we can say that Ningol Chakoba, it represents the pride of Manipuri Ningols, that is daughters and sisters. It celebrates their womanhood, the special bond of unconditional love and care that they share with their natal family and especially with their pibas or brothers. It is also a nostalgic time for recalling some of their intimate childhood memories in the space where they were born and brought up. And but in the event of any inauspicious occurrence in the family, such as a death, then Ningol Chakoba is not celebrated that year.
Right. So Ningol Chakoba is about the celebration of womanhood and the immensely pure brother-sister relationship, right? What are the important rites and rituals that are associated with this festival, and how are they important from the point of view of social harmony?
Yes. Ningol Chakoba is a much eagerly awaited and popular social festival, especially for the married women, both young and old alike, who belonging to the Meitei community of Manipur. And unmarried women are also equally welcomed. The married women, they bring along with them their children to their mothers' homes, or mapam, mothers' homes known as mapam in Manipuri, as a mark of revival and strengthening of their family time. So it is a kind of gala event for families having many married Ningols and who are now settled at different places, because it provides them with an opportunity for people across different generations within the same family to meet each other, to get to know each other, and merrymaking, Thanksgiving, these are an important part of the celebrations that is all about nurturing of blood relationships. So Ningol Chakoba is an annual family reunion, a kind of leisurely get together.
Right.
But Ningol Chakoba, it also has a very strong emotional sentiment attached with it, because the beloved daughters of the family and their children are the main focus of attention on this special day. They are pampered, they are showered with all the love and care from their parents, neighbors, and especially their brothers on this day. And generally, generally speaking, the traditional norm has been that the husbands of the daughters, the married daughters and the sisters, they are not a part of the celebrations. And a popular saying in Manipur goes so that women who wholeheartedly accept the hospitality of their brothers on the day of Ningol Chakoba, they need not fear death. And the male members or the Pibas of the family, they send invitations to the Ningols a week in advance for a grand lunch party, which is to be hosted in her welcome, in her natal home. And the invites, they are not ordinary cards. The invites of Ningol Chakoba, they are not just ordinary cards, but they are uh, very beautifully crafted from betel leaves or pan, and these betel leaves are rolled over a few freshly cut betel nuts, which is known as tambula in Sanskrit. And on the day of Ningol Chakoba, the women carry various items like baskets of fresh homegrown fruits, among which coconut has to be a must. Then seasonal vegetables, spices, betel nuts, pan, special homemade sweets, assorted chocolates, snacks, etc., and various traditional Manipuri snacks such as kabok, khoidum, etc., for her family members as a token of love and affection. And this tradition of bringing edibles by the Ningols, it is known as Athen pot or Khudel pot among the Manipuris, and it is believed to be in reverence for her dead ancestors. And during this time, the traders also, they deal with an assortment of various imported fruits, traditional sweets, in order to cater to the surging demand. And as I said, the Ningols' parents and brothers, they pamper them with some of the best clothes, jewelry, utensils, cash, which are bestowed upon the Ningols as gifts for the occasion. The brothers, they apply a chandan tilak in their sisters' foreheads, and the sisters, I mean the Ningols, in return, they bless their brothers in bowing heads with good fortune, a long, healthy, and wealthy life. They also bring special gifts for their brothers to mark the special day. And it is believed to protect the sacred Piba Ningol relationship from any evil eye and bring all round happiness and prosperity in both their lives. And the kids of the married Ningols, they are also given gifts of clothes and toys along with them. And in cases if both the parents have died and the brothers are no longer staying in their family home, the women make it a point to visit their brothers' homes on the occasion, even if the brothers are settled in faraway places presently. I also came across many such, a few such families in Bishanpur or Bishnupur in Manipur. So women who are the only daughters in their families and who do not have a brother of their own, they are called upon by their parents to grace the occasion. And on this day, the streets of Imphal, they are beautiful. They could be seen to be bustling with women who have adorned themselves with the finest of clothes, designer jewelry, and traditional Manipuri outfits. So it's a beautiful festival overall.
Right.
It's going to be celebrated on 5th of November this year.
Advance wishes already to the people of Northeast. Now, food constitutes a very important part of the festival, Dr. Ankita. And in this respect, what is so special about the festival that strikes you?
In many things, there are so many things actually to talk about regarding the food and the special feast, the delicious feast that is prepared on the occasion of Ningol Chakoba. It is known as Utsav, or in Manipuri language, it is also known as Chak Chanaba. Chak Chanaba or Utsav, and it is prepared by the cook who is especially arranged. The cook is especially arranged for the day by the Ningol's family. And the preparation for the feast, it begins early in the morning itself. All the siblings, friends, neighbors, family members, including the parents of the Ningols, they all sit in the ground together and have their relishing lunch. But the participation of neighbors in the lunch is, however, optional, depending upon invitation by the host. And in case the neighbors join the feast, they also bring gifts of clothes, vegetables, homegrown rice and fruits for the Ningols to take to their husband's home. Many families, they ensure that the feast or the utsav is prepared in the same old kitchen from where the Ningol had enjoyed having her food together with her parents and siblings before she got married. So every effort is being made to ensure that the taste buds of the Ningols are carefully kept in mind while preparing the meal. Coming to the food, fish forms the major food item in the Ningol Chakoba menu. And two varieties of fish, rohu and sareng, they are the most craved after delicacies. In fact, rice with fish curry is the staple diet of the Metis of Manipur, and in fact for most of the communities of Purvottar Bharat. And the Metis of Manipur, they are especially fond of certain particular varieties of fishes like pengba, khaba, hilsa, etc. And all these different varieties of fish, they are included as a part of the extensive and lavish non-vegetarian menu on the occasion of Ningol Chakoba, obviously depending upon the affordability of the respective families. And since the Metis are known to love the bitter taste of a particular plant called suktani, which is abundantly available in the thick forests of Purvottar Bharat, especially Manipur, Mizoram, and Nagaland. So this plant, suktani, its crushed leaves are served in the form of a dry sabzi as a starter with rice. And as a tradition, the food is served on banana leaves, with bamboo shoot pickle being one of the most important items on the side. And fish curry and eromba. Eromba is a chutney of fermented fish, which is also a popular delicacy in the states of Manipur and Nagaland. And eromba is one of the signature delicacies of Manipuri cuisine as well, and it is a must item of Ningol Chakoba. And it is believed that in the absence of eromba, the Ningol Chakoba feast is incomplete. The love for fermented fish, actually, it is a common thread that unites the different states of Northeast India, because we find different dishes of fermented fish in the different states of this region, and it is almost a customary ritual in every household here to preserve fish so that they never run short of it during the lean season. And the Ningol Chakoba feast, it ends with one last course of sweet dish. And the sweet dish is prepared with this Manipuri black rice. It is known as kheer, the sweet dish, or sometimes it is also a fruit salad. Okay, and the market demand for fish, it witnesses a huge surge during, just a few days ahead of the festival. And huge crowds of people could be seen making a huge line in front of the fish stalls, waiting for their turn to come. And customers, the excitement could be seen there. And in order to liven up the festivities, special fish fairs fish crop competitions are also held in different places. Fishing and angling competitions are also organized in several districts of the state prior to a few days of the festival, and these are thronged by thousands of people. Generally, they are held 2 to 3 days before the festival, and these fishing and angling competitions, they are organized under the initiative of the State Fisheries Department of the government of Manipur. And various species of local freshwater fish, they are being displayed for sale at one place and at a low market price. And so like Ningol Chakoba has arrived, it's kind of like that. And hundreds of stalls are put up by the fish farmers who come from faraway places to take part in these fairs. And this also helps save time and money on the part of the buyers. A temporary fish market is also being put up by the State Fisheries Department at the Imphal Hapta Kangjebung, which is one of the world's polo grounds and also the main venue where Manipur Sangai Festival is held every year during the month of November, December. And here at the Imphal Hapta Kangjebung, fish is sold at cheaper rates to attract customers from various socio-economic strata to purchase as much fish as they want for Ningol Chakoba.
Right. Thank you so much. That's such a beautiful story. And I can only imagine how interesting the cuisine is during the festivities there. And in fact, a lot of my friends do tell me that, Hilsa is out of this world and it tastes very well. But they are often disappointed when I tell them that I'm a vegetarian. So unfortunately, I won't be able to taste it. But I can only understand how tasty it would be. So in that sense, there's another question I've been wanting to ask you. A lot of people of Manipur now live as a diaspora outside of Manipur and even outside of India. So because of that existing gap from their motherland, how are the festivities carried out even today in spite of that distance?
Yeah, it is, first of all, this day of Ningol Chakoba, it is declared as a state holiday by the government of Manipur. And in today's date, it is celebrated by different social organizations, not only in Manipur, but also across different places of India and abroad as well. Like, for example, in 2019, when Ningol Chakoba was held in the month of November, different communities from Manipur who are now settled in South Korea, they had observed Ningol Chakoba along with their another festival, which is known as Chavangkut. Chavangkut is an autumn harvest festival of the Kuki Chin Mizo community. And this was organized under the initiative of the Korea Manipuri Association at Anseong City in South Korea. And the joint the joint event was celebrated under the theme called Ching Tam Amatani. Ching Tam Amatani in Manipuri means the hill and the valley both. The people of the hill and the valley both are one and the same. So this is Ching Tam Amatani. And Ningol Chakoba nowadays, it is even celebrated in Canada by the Manipuri Association of Canada, and at home in India, when we come to India, it is the Association of Manipuri Diaspora called Amand of Pune, which is a non-government, non-profit community organization founded by some working retired Manipuri professionals residing in and around Pune. This organization has been celebrating Ningol Chakoba events every year since 2016. And it is also celebrated by the Manipuri Metis Association of Bengaluru. There is another organization called Manipuris in Kolkata, MIK, which celebrate Ningol Chakoba at the Nakala Udayan Sangha in a place called Goriahat in Kolkata. Right. And different Manipuri dance performances including the Manipuri classical dance form called Jagoe, and there is another popular folk dance of Manipur called Thabal Chongba, which is associated with the Holi festival. Holi in Manipuri is known as Yaoshang, and besides the Dasavatar Nritya, the Maibi dance, Kabui dance, etc., they are all organized to mark this event. It is actually a revival and reinforcement of the fraternal bond of love, responsibility, and protection that exists between brothers and sisters, and thus helps strengthen the family ties across different generations. It is also a day of socialization, which is exclusively meant for women to be with her parents and siblings in the place where she was born and where she grew up, to be a young lady and share with them the joys and sorrows of her married life. And therefore, popularly in Manipur, Ningol Chakoba is also known as Manipur's own Women's Day. So it is a kind of festival of homecoming, sharing, and merriment when people look beyond petty familial conflicts, sibling rivalries, etc.
Right.
And most importantly, in the present times, various conferences are also organized on this occasion. Conferences on issues like women empowerment, child health and nutrition, menstrual health and hygiene, on differently abled women, etc. These conferences are organized in several places of Manipur by different organizations who are associated with the cause. And prominent speakers with expertise on these areas, they are invited as the chief guests, like for example, a few years back, former Chief Minister of Manipur, Okra Mibobi Singh, he had hailed the changing trends of this festival of Ningol Chakoba, which has now taken to a kind of campaign mode, especially in the districts of Ukhrul, Chandel, and Tamenglong, for strengthening inter-community ties, especially for strengthening the ties between the hill and the valley people. And somewhere this is also aimed at sending out a message of peaceful coexistence and social and ethnic harmony, besides strengthening the age-old ties among the valley and the hill residents of Manipur. So the celebration of festivals such as Ningol Chakoba, it helps pave the way for social unification, for emotional integration, harmony among different ethnic groups and communities of the state. And it is, some communities, they also call it by the name of Ningol Ningsing. Like many the Kuki Christians, who are largely Christians, they some sections among the Kukis, they call it by the name of Ningol Ningsing. And nowadays, even the police and other government departments, including Assam Rifles, they organize Ningol Chakoba feasts as a part of their civic action programs. And non-Manipuri families as well. This is another interesting aspect. The non-Manipuri families living in Manipur, such as the Marwari community, the Hindu Bengali community, they also invite their daughters and sisters for being a part of the Ningol Chakoba festivities at home. Yes.
Right. Thank you so much for sharing that. And in fact, I'll be visiting the place where in Bengaluru, they'll be organizing the festival. I'm sure it'll be very interesting to see.
Yeah.
I'm glad you shared that with us. In fact, you know, Dr. Datta, Ningol Chakoba actually reminds me of a festival in Assam, which is celebrated by the tea garden community called Tusupuja. So what are the origins of this festival?
Yes, Tusupuja is just celebrated 2 months after, we can say, Deepavali and Ningol Chakoba. Tusupuja is celebrated in the month of January, towards January end, among the tea garden communities of Assam. And Tusupuja is another Hindu festival of the tea garden communities, which is celebrated around the same time as Makar Sankranti. And Makar Sankranti, among the different Vanavasi communities of Purvottar Bharat, Makar Sankranti is known by different names, such as it is known as Manghi amongst the Boros, it is known as Daduri amongst the Rabhas, Aran Chalong amongst the Adis of Arunachal Pradesh, then among the Garos, Makar Sankranti is known as Mangona, etc. So it has different names. Tusu Puja or Tusu Parab, it is celebrated around the same time as Makar Sankranti. It is a lesser known but a quite popular Hindu festival that falls in mid-January. And since it is celebrated on the same day as Makar Sankranti, almost on the same day as Makar Sankranti, many scholars have argued that it is the worship of Makar Bahini or Devi Ganga. And Tusupuja, it is a Hindu religious festival which is celebrated in honor of Tusu Devi. Tusu Devi is worshipped as the goddess of agriculture and believed to be the supreme epitome of Shakti by the communities who celebrate this festival. In Assam, Tusu Puja coincides with the festival of Magh Bihu, and it is celebrated with much grandeur among the socio-economically marginalized Vanavasi communities of the tea garden areas. The name Tusu has been derived from the Bengali word tush. Tush refers to the outer coating of paddy, or which is more popularly known as rice bran, and it is a derivative from the Sanskrit root word usha or osha. And the celebrations of Tusu Puja, they begin from the first day of the month of Posh, after the harvest of the almond paddy crop or the winter crop. And they continue for almost a month till the last day of Posh, that is Posh Sankranti or Makar Sankranti. The unmarried girls of the village, they make beautiful murtis of Tusu Devi, which are worshipped on the day of the festival. And Tusu Devi is visualized among these communities as a chaste young virgin girl and a cosmic Devi whose images are drawn on pictures in the Alpana style of painting. And a get-together is organized in the house of a selected person where the girls gather together to sing at least one song every night before going to sleep. And this process continues for 29 days. On the final day, that is on the 30th day, women exchange garlands and they fry 8 different varieties of pulses, which are given as an offering to Ma Tusu or Tusu Devi, along with a plate of locally grown rice. So Tusu Parab is a festival of socio-religious significance that celebrates femininity, that celebrates womanhood. It acts as a medium of devotional and spiritual expression for both young girls and married women. The origins of Tusu Puja, they have been traced on the basis of 3 different stories prevalent in different parts of Eastern India. The first story goes so that a prince marries a beautiful young maiden of the region named Tusumani, who was the daughter of a poor potter. However, the prince died at a very early age, leaving behind the young Tusumani. And out of deep sorrow, Tusumani decided to commit suicide by self-immolating herself in the funeral pyre of her dead husband. And it is since then that the local people of the area have been commemorating this sad incident by observing Tusu Parab in the memory of Tusumoni. The second story is about a king who passionately wanted to marry an extremely beautiful and attractive village girl named Tushmuni or Tusu. But the king could not marry her due to her untimely demise at a very young age. Then the king subsequently lost his mental balance as a result of the deep pain suffered by him because of this unfortunate incident. And in order to console the grieving king, the villagers made a statue of Tushmuni and kept it near the king's palace. And this tradition has been kept alive by the local people of this region. And the murti of Tushmuni is made every year since then as a mark of the grand celebrations of Tusu Parab. The third story narrates the tale of a Mughal king who wanted to marry a potter's daughter named Tusumani after he was being deeply smitten by her beauty. Her father was a rich Kurmi landlord who disapproved of the marriage on the ground that the king was a mlecha or foreigner. And thereafter, the king started physical abuse and torture of the poor innocent villagers. Tusumani's father fixed her marriage with another groom, but the Mughal king killed her fiancé too and tortured his family members. And angered by the defiance of the landlord, he then tried to kidnap Tusumani. She was later rescued with the assistance of the soldiers of her father, but unable to bear the embarrassment, Tusumani ultimately decided to end her life by plunging into the waters of the river Damodar, that is today known as Tatil Ghat, among the Kudumi community of Jharkhand, Chhattisgarh, and Orissa. And the Kudumi community also celebrates Tusu Puja with a great fanfare. And the belief is that it was on the day of Makar Sankranti that Tusumani committed suicide. So this is the common belief that prevails across the regions where Tusu Puja is celebrated in Chhattisgarh, Jharkhand, certain parts of West Bengal and Assam. And the family members of the society, they felt utterly desolate and helpless after this painful incident. And since then, Tusu came to be worshipped as a Devi, as a goddess by the followers of the landlord for her supreme sacrifice. And it gradually became a tradition in the form of Tusu Puja, which is clearly evident from the Tusu Geets prevailing in the region. And the
Right.
story of Tusu is sometimes also related to the beauty of Rani Padmini of Chittor, who embraced Johar to save her faith and identity from the wrath of Alauddin Khilji. So, in a way, the story of Tusumoni also gives us an idea of the Islamic invasions which attacked the life and culture of the natives and their resistance to not accept a foreign religion, a foreign faith at any cost. But the main point is, although there exist some variations in the names, places, and characters of the stories, but the common element in each of them is the suicide committed by this beautiful girl called Tusu in order to protect her purity and chastity. And it was her self-sacrifice which eventually came to be celebrated as a symbol of self-restraint and thus took the shape of this festival.
Thank you so much for sharing that, Ankita ji. Now, what are the different rites and rituals that are associated with Tusu Puja?
Yes. Well, coming to the different rites and rituals of Tusu Puja, as I already explained in my earlier explanation of who is Tusuma or Tusu Devi. So on this festival, two different types of murtis of Tusu Devi are made. One murti is of clay and another is of sola, or sola is sponge wood. And generally, the murti, it wears a tin foil crown of colored papers on its head and golden ornaments made of glass paper in its hands and neck. It is the murti is draped in a red blue color paper sari, and the festivities of Tusu Puja, they commence from the morning itself of the next day. It begins with the Pran Pratishtha of the murti of Tusu Devi in individual homes, which are freshly painted on the eve of the festival. The floors of the entrances to the houses, they are decorated with colorful ritual drawings of rice powder that is mixed in water or alpana, which are sometimes done around a little elevated platform that is neatly smeared with cow dung and mud paste. And this is meant to be the seat of the Devi, of the deity. The main doors of the houses, they are painted, and sometimes a bunch of paddy is also hanged to symbolize the homecoming of Tusu Devi. New earthen pots are purchased on the eve of the festival. In many households, the Pran Pratishtha of Tusu Devi takes place in the afternoon, when the female members, after finishing their household chores, they go out together in a celebratory procession to buy the murti from the nearby marketplace. And then after that, all the women of the village, they adorn themselves in colorful new clothes and participate in this procession, singing various local songs in praise of Tusu Devi. The main religious rituals of Tusu Puja, they are held in the evening. Four earthen vessels called Sara, they are filled with sand, flowers, and rice grains, and then placed in front of the murti. An elder woman of the village called Tusuni, she offers food or prasadam to the Devi, comprising of peas, nakuldana. Nakuldana is a kind of sweetmeat which is prepared from sugar and flour, and flattened rice that is mixed with gur and curd. The women folk, they gather around and they sing songs in glorification of Tusuma, seeking her blessings. These songs are popularly known as Jagorani Beat or Awakening. Jagorani means awakening. And they have their meals only after the due completion of these religious ceremonies. In the afternoon of the next day, that is on the day of Sankranti, Tusuma is accorded a ceremonial send-off, which is known as Bhasan. And this refers to the immersion of the murti of Tusuma in the river waters through a celebratory procession. The unmarried girls, they gather together at the place of the of the Tusu Bhasani Mela. Tusu Bhasani Mela is the place where the immersion of the murtis takes place and where they sing different Tusu geets and dance with merriment. The older women also, they join these young girls by singing songs. And an oblation of fresh flowers and fruits together with flattened rice that is mixed with jaggery is offered to Ma Tusu by the Tusuni on the banks of the river before her immersion. River water is sprinkled over the murtis as a gesture of sanctity and respect, after which they are finally immersed. And they later feast on a meal of rice and fish curry, believing that this would usher in a new life, a new lease of life. And at the end of the bhasan, the women, they take a holy dip into the river, and the procession then returns to the village amid a fiesta of dancing and singing. Then the old lady, the oldest lady in the village, she distributes prasad to each and everyone who are assembled at the place to take part in the immersion ceremony. And various traditional local sweet dishes like pita, puli is a form of pancake. They are enjoyed by the people on the occasion of Tusupuja. Roti pitha, gur pitha, muri lai, tilkut. These are some of the all-time favorites. And in many places, there is also a tradition of feeding crows with rice on the last day of Tusupuja. Worship of the sun or Surya Devta is also one of the major rituals of Tusupuja, worshipping the sun. It is because seed germination, which is very important for the agricultural cycle, seed germination cannot take place in the absence of sunlight. And this is a common belief in our Hindu pantheon. And our ancestors were very much aware of the changes in the movement of the sun at this time of the year, during the time of Makar Sankranti, and which was celebrated by them in their own distinct and unique ways. And in this way, Tusupuja is not merely a local festival celebrated by a few Vanavasi communities. In fact, Tusuma is worshipped to solemnize the power of the sun, which is the symbol of divinity and wisdom in agriculture and the cultivation of crops. Women play a very important role in almost all the rituals of Tusupuja, including the sowing of seeds, painting of the alpana, pran pratishtha of the murti of Tusu Devi, grinding rice with cow dung balls and paddy. So in all these rituals, women are indispensable. Numerous songs which are sung by women in honor of Tusuma, they are a reflection of the traditional cultural heritage of the Vanavasi communities. And these are songs of fertility, which pray to Bhudevi or Mother Earth for a rich and prosperous harvest. They are the products of oral transmission of local histories through several generations. But overall, these songs are based on different stories from the Ramayana, from the Mahabharata and the Puranas. And also nowadays, these songs, they also reflect contemporary political and local issues. And they also portray different facets of life and people's ways of living in close interaction with nature. In Assam, Tusupuja is a grand socio-cultural and religious celebration, and it is mainly confined to the tea garden community, who have a very beautiful and unique culture of their own. As I said, it coincides with the festival of Magh Bihu, and therefore it is declared as a regional public holiday every year by the government of Assam. The rich culture and traditions of the tea garden community of Assam, it is an integral part of the overall Assamese culture and heritage. At present, there are several lakhs of tea garden laborers in Assam, and they have accepted this land as their own and contributed in their own wonderful ways towards strengthening the socio-cultural fabric of the state of Assam and the formation of a greater Assamese identity. And besides Tusu Puja, they also celebrate Durga Puja, Deepavali, Kali Puja, Manasa Puja, Shivratri, Sarhul, Karam Puja, Maroi Puja, Sohrai Parab, Holi, etc., as per their own traditional customs and belief systems. And they observe Magh Bihu as well by setting fire to the Meji or Bhela Ghor, besides feasting on popular Assamese delicacies. And most of their festivals are centered around the women of their community, which also reflects a lot about the history their social values, and the aesthetic lives of the tea garden laborers. In a few tea garden areas of Upper Assam that I had visited during my field studies, fairs called Posh Mela or Tusu Mela are organized as a mark of Tusupuja. And these melas are a traditional part of the Tusu Utsav. They are organized with the aim of bringing the traditional culture of the Vanavasis and the local artisans and the craftsmen and their skills to the limelight. There is also a famous story in Assam that is associated with the festival of Tusu Puja, and it is believed that Rukmini, alias Tusu, was one of the beautiful daughters of the Kurmi king of present-day Gujarat. But the Sultan of Delhi was desperately trying to annex his kingdom into their dominions through a conversion of the entire population into Islam. But instead of surrendering, the king chose to flee and sought refuge in the court of the then king of Punjab. The name of the king was Birbal, and it was during those days that Tusu and Sitaram was the son of the king of Punjab, Birbal, they fell in love with each other. But the Sultan now wanted to own Tusu, the Sultan of Delhi, and he was baying for the blood of the Kurmi king, that is Tusu's father, which became a factor of obstruction in the relationship of Tusu and Sitaram. But the king eventually had to leave in order to escape the enemy. And Tusu and Sitaram too, they accompanied the king, and they ran away from Punjab first to the land of the Santhals in central India, and from there they escaped into the deep and dense jungles of Assam. And it was here in Assam that the Bhumij and the Chautal communities residing in the Brahmaputra Valley, they came to know about Tusu and Sitaram's love story, and they helped the lovebirds get married under the initiative of the Bhumij king. But in a quite unfortunate turn of events, Tusu's husband actually died within just a few days of their marriage, and news now came in that the soldiers of the Sultan of Delhi, they were leaving no stone unturned to capture Tusu, and Tusu was unable to bear the tragic loss of her husband, and to save her soul from becoming a slave in the hands of the Islamic invader, Tusu self-immolated herself. She willingly sat atop the funeral pyre of her husband, thus becoming Sati and soon transforming herself into a Devi. And it was so this is the story in Assam, and it was from then onwards that the Chautals, the Bhumij, and the Kurmi community, they began to worship Tusu as a pure soul. And with the gradual passage of time, she came to be also worshipped as Ma Sita and Ma Savitri. Therefore, festivals such as Tusu Puja, they are also indicative of they remind us of the history of extreme aversion that was posed by the people of our country against a barbaric foreign force of religious bigots. And many of the Vanavasi communities, they also compare Tusu with Ma Kali and Ma Durga. She is venerated with different songs that are a beautiful description of the various aspects of her life. The first day of the festival is known as Uruka, when boys and girls, they carry the murti of Tusu Devi from house to house, singing the praises of her glory and unmatched love and dedication towards her husband. Young girls, they adorn themselves in the best of their traditional attire, and they perform a special dance called Jhumur Nitya to the tunes of the drum, which is known as the Madal in the tea garden language. And Tusuma symbolizes the virtues of kindness, love, sacrifice, and she happens to be the favorite goddess of the tea garden community of Assam. And just like in other parts of India as well, both til and gur or jaggery, they are the two most important items of the various traditional dishes that are prepared on the occasion of Tusu Puja in Assam. And therefore, it is also known as Til Sankranti among some sections of the tea garden communities. And at the end of the ceremonies, as I said, the murti is immersed in the nearby river. And there is also a traditional custom in which many devotees, they forge new bonds of friendship on this day with the river as a witness to their promise. But earlier, Tusu Puja was celebrated for the entire month of pause. But in the recent years, due to the constraints of time and changing circumstances, the celebrations have been reduced to only 2 days of the month. That is the previous day of pause Sankranti, the 29th day of pause month, which is observed as Jagaran or awakening, and the next day on which the festivities formally come to an end.
Right. Thank you so much for sharing that, Dr. Ankita. And after Tusupuja in January, the missing community of Assam celebrates a famous festival called Aliyai Ligang. Can you tell us more in detail about the community and the festival?
Yes. Aliyai Ligang, yeah, it is celebrated after Tusupuja, generally in the month of February or March. It is popularly also known as Mishing Bihu, and it is the most important and widely observed festival among the Mishing community of Assam. Uh, Briefly about the Mishings, they are recognized as scheduled tribes under the Constitution of India, also known as the Miris. They are designated as the second largest plains tribal community of Assam after the Boros. The celebration of Aliyai Ligang heralds the beginning of the Mishing New Year, which is also known as Anu Ditag among the Mishings. I mean, in the Mishing language, the Mishing New Year is also known as Anu Ditag, and the celebrations sometimes even continue for up to 10 to 12 days. I remember once I was discussing about the politics behind increasing Christian conversions among the Mishing community, and one of my friends from Dhemaji district in Upper Assam, who belongs to the Mishing community, she drew my attention to the traditional Gomrak or Gumrak dance of the Mishings that is especially performed during the festival of Aliyai Ligang. And she gave me many details about this festival and the dance as well. And it is one of the most distinguished dance forms of the Mishing community. My friend, she further went on to explain the significance of rice beer and pork among the Mishings in almost all their festivals. And any celebration, whether it is a marriage or a religious ceremony or a festival, is incomplete without rice beer and pork among the Mishings, or for that matter, among different sections of people in the Northeast. Now, coming back to Aliyai Ligang, also known as Mishing Bihu or Ligang for short, it is an annual springtime seed sowing ceremony of the Mishings. And the socio-cultural significance of Aliyai Ligang associated with cultivation and harvesting, it is implied in the name itself. Literally, Aliyai Ligang, it refers to the first sowing of seeds, in which Ali comes from the root alu, which stands for roots or seeds or legumes. I means fruits, and ligang means the beginning of the process of sowing or planting of roots and seeds, etc. So therefore, the dance performances that take place during this festival, they are a replica of the sowing of new paddy seeds in the field for a productive harvest. Root-based green vegetables like yams, edible tubers, and fruits, they were the staple food items of the Mishings in the earlier times when they resided in the hills. Their ways of living and lifestyles changed very fast with the spread of settled agriculture after they migrated to the valley. Rice, along with boiled vegetables, meat, fish, and pork, which is cooked in a special variety of green leafy vegetable grown in Assam in the northeast, that is known as lai hak. They are some of their signature delicacies. The Mishings are ethnically akin to the Adis and Nishis of neighboring Arunachal Pradesh, and as well as the Tanis of Tibet and southern China. A large section of the Mishing population is to be found residing along the fertile alluvial banks of the Brahmaputra and its tributaries such as the Subansiri and the Bharoli in Assam. And the ample availability of water near to the places of their residences has made rice cultivation and animal husbandry the two most important vocations of the Mishing community in general. And therefore, most of their major festivals such as Aliyai Ligang, which is the spring cultural festival. There is another festival called Porag Purnima, which is their post-harvest festival. Other festivals of the Mishings like Amrok, Taling Uyu, Ashi Uyu, Dobuir Puja, etc. They are associated with the different cycles of the agricultural seasons. Since agriculture, it forms the backbone of the Mishing economy, the entire Mishing society comes together enthusiastically for paddy cultivation, beginning from the day of Aliyai Ligang onwards. And Ahu paddy, a variety of rice, that was the main crop when jhum cultivation was practiced among the Mishings in the past. Aliyah Ligang was observed with grandeur as a mark of the arrival of the Ahu and the Bao paddy seasons, because Sali, Ahu, and Bao. Sali, Ahu, and Bao are the three main varieties of rice commonly grown in the low-lying alluvial belts of the Mishing dominated areas of Dhemaji and Lokhimpur districts in Upper Assam. And among all these three, the Ahu variety of rice is of greater importance in the Vanavasi societies, such as that of the Mishings. And therefore, most of their celebrations begin after Makar Sankranti, when the sowing of the Ahu paddy crop actually begins. The celebrations of Aliyah Ligang, they mainly include prayers for a good harvest, dances, and feasting by both the young and the old alike. Previously, Aliyah Ligang was not celebrated at a fixed time or date, but it varied depending upon the convenience and the consent of the majority of the people, and as well as the climatic conditions. It was an organization called the Adi Mishing Bane Kebang, which is the largest socio-cultural and economic organization of the Adis and the Mishings of Arunachal Pradesh and Assam respectively, which first began the celebrations of Aliyah Ligang sometimes in mid-February from the year 1956 onwards. And it was from then onwards that a decision was arrived at to celebrate Aliyah Ligang annually on Ligange Lange. Ligange Lange, that means the first Wednesday of the Assamese month of Phagun or Falguna, which is strongly believed by the Mishings as the day of the worship of Ma Lakshmi that falls in the missing month of Ginmur Polo. Ginmur Polo is it coincides with mid-February to mid-March as per the Gregorian calendar. So since then, the Mishings have been observing the auspicious Ligang festival in the first week of the month of Fagun. And the festivities of Aliyah Ligang, as I said, they are associated with different agro-based rites and rituals, including the worship of the paddy crop and the ritualistic commencement of the agricultural season. Melodious songs of love and merriment that are sung during Ligang, they are known as Oinitom or simply Nitoms, which generally consist of only two lines, not necessarily rhyming, and each line in the song depicts a different emotion. The language is simple and suggestive, and these songs are beautiful. They speak of the raw beauty of nature. They are a reminiscence of the transition of the seasons from winter to spring, and again from summer to winter, and vice versa. And from the blossoming of love and affection between two young lovers to nature's beauty, these songs called Oinitoms, they talk about the ups and downs in the life of a man, his happiness and sufferings, and death as the ultimate truth. They are kind of an evocative description of the different experiences of the Mishings in their daily lives that not only captures the spirit of the festival of spring, fertility, then the beautiful kopo flower or the Assamese orchid, and the undying love of Jonki and Panoi. Jonki and Panoi are believed to be the Heer and Lanjha of the Mishings. And nowadays, most of the songs called Nitoms, which are sung during the festival of Aliyah Ligang, they have also become a kind of satirical socio-political commentary on the contemporary state of affairs in the society and its political system. Their expressive beats and tunes share many similarities with the Assamese Bihu songs. And there is a popular variant of Oinitom called Birik, which is especially sung during Aliyah Ligang and another festival of the Mishings, that is Porag. So Birik is a special variety of Oinitom that describe the different aspects of nature in general and agriculture in particular for understanding in a comprehensive manner.
Thank you so much for that. And the Mishings are ancestor worshippers, and certain sections among the community are the followers of a system called the Doni Polo faith system. Can you explain in detail how this is very relevant to the context of Aliyah Ligang?
Yes, because ancestor worship is performed on the first day of Aliyah Ligang, which is also the inaugural day. Offerings of gur, til, rice are made to the spirits called Uyu or Uye of their dead ancestors in a special Thanksgiving ceremony. And in the Mishing cultural belief systems, there are several types of Uyus or Uyis, such as Dobur Uyu, Urom Uyu, Taleng Uyu, Bumin Uyu, etc. And each of these Uyus are believed to cause a particular type of problem or disease. The ceremony of ancestor worship among the Missings is known by different names such as Juri, Yumrang Uyu, or Urom Aping. It is generally officiated by the Mibu or the missing priest. The traditional missing religion involving the worship of different forces of nature and the sun and the moon in particular, sun known as the Doni and moon Polo. Doni Polo. It is known, this tradition is also known as Kevalia or Kalhang or Nishamila. So these are the different names by which this tradition of worshipping the sun and the moon is known: Kevalia, Kalhang, or Nishamila. And although Christianity has made strong inroads among the Missings of Assam in the recent times, yet a large section of the Missings here, they still prefer to call themselves as Hindus. They are followers of the Mahapurusha Bhakatiya tradition of Srimanta Shankardev, that is imbued with numerous rites, rituals, and practices which are unique to the Missings. A handful of ahu paddy seeds that are placed in an igin. Igin is a cone-shaped structure that is made from bamboo with sipag or cotton is sown in a corner of the field with a yoppa. Yoppa is a local missing sword, and this sowing of the ahu seeds is done by the eldest member of the family early in the morning, seeking the blessings of their ancestors or uyus for the birth of healthy children, a rich harvest, well-being of the domestic animals, and for the overall development of the society. To pacify the devtas, many things are offered, like pithas or cakes made of a special variety of rice called bora saul and the seeds of the crops sown, etc. Therefore, the ceremonial sowing of paddy among the Missings begins from the day of Aliyah Ligang. A small patch of land in the eastern part of the field is first cleared by using the yoppa, and it is then decorated with grains of locally grown brown rice or buka saul in a square, forming a circular pattern. The rice grains are then positioned at appropriate places within the decorated area over which the seeds are sown by chanting a main prayer. The prayer goes like this: Sedi Melo Karsing Katag Abu Polo Rugzi Merang Guing Somin Doni Polo. So Doni is the sun, Polo moon. So in remembrance of their ancestors who are believed to bear witness of the seed sowing ceremony into the womb of Mother Earth or Bhudevi. And the same prayer is being sung by the Missings in other religious ceremonies and social functions too. And Doni, as I said, signifies the sun, and Polo is the moon. Doni Polo is revered by the Missings as their Ishta Devta or primary god, and who is offered prayers on almost every other auspicious occasion. The Missings also invoke the blessings of the mother goddess or Kini Nane. The mother goddess is known as Kini Nane among the Missings while sowing the seeds, so as to protect their crops from insects and other natural calamities. And sometimes Nam Kirtan, as espoused by Mahapurush Srimanta Shankardev, is also performed by the Missings on the first day of Aliyah Ligang as a prayer for removing all misfortunes and difficulties that might befall upon their crops and animals. An earthen lamp, a diya, is lit by the Mibu or the missing priest in front of his house on all the days of Aliyah Ligang. And this is done in honor of the departed forefathers of the Missings for year-round happiness and prosperity. A spade or any other agricultural equipment is covered with a particular leaf called torapat and then placed in a corner of the field undisturbed till the end of the festival. And upon the completion of the sowing of the seeds, the Missings make a promise to Bhudevi or Mother Earth of Guru Kudim Bhakotagdim Godha Ghoraku Pujim, meaning I shall offer these crops to the preceptor, to the devotees. I shall also worship donkeys and mules. So this means that the farmer is not going to enjoy the fruits of his labor alone, but shall rather share the harvest with the rich and the wealthy, the poor and the beggars, and all other living beings alike without any discrimination of class and status. So in this way, the festivities of Aliyah Ligang begin and the headman of the family returns home. A fish and meat collection drive is also being undertaken collectively by the entire village using knives, bamboo, and iron implements 2 days before the beginning of Ali Ligang. And in the earlier days, the men would go out hunting in groups, while the women would engage themselves in the collection of edible leaves, vegetables, firewood, etc. for the Ali Ligang feast. That's it.
Right. Thank you so much. And what are the different religious rites and rituals that are associated with Alia Ligang? And also, I've been hearing a lot about Apong and how it is very important to the festivities there. It's basically rice beer, if I'm not mistaken. How is this very important in the missing society and culture?
Yeah, coming to the different rituals and activities that are associated with this festival. Activities such as plowing the field, cutting off any trees, bushes, plucking and burning of leaves, collecting vegetables from the fields, fishing, etc., are strictly forbidden on all the 6 to 7 days of the festival as a special gesture of respect towards nature, as it is common with other Hindu festivals as well. And anti-social activities such as crime, theft, and violence on the days of the festival, they are also punishable offenses, with punishments with punishments ranging from fines to social boycott being the most commonly meted out ones to the offenders. Missing families, they do not give out any grains, mainly rice, under any circumstance to outsiders during these days, even through exchange or barter. It is considered to be a bad omen that brings financial difficulties for the family. And the main ceremonies of the Ligang, they begin from about mid-noon after the completion of the sowing of seeds. Along with rice, dried fish, pork, and apong also known as haspani or homemade rice beer, they constitute the main items of the main menu of the grand banquet or feast that is organized as a part of this festival. And apong or haspani, that is locally brewed rice beer, is it is intrinsically associated with the culture, civilization, and religion of entire Northeast India, of entire Purvottar Bharat, and the missings in particular. And no religious ritual is observed among the missing community without the presence of apong or haspani, that is rice beer. Apong is sprinkled by the missing priest or mibu over the main religious place of worship and other elderly persons sitting around it as a mark of soul purification. During the festival of Alia Ligam, Apong is prepared in sufficient quantities in almost every missing household. The women get together in the kitchen to prepare Apong, and another special variety of food which is known as purang or tupula bhat. It is a boiled rice dumpling that is wrapped in a particular variety of leaf called torapat into sizable packets, and both of these are an essential and must include ethnic dishes of the delicious Alia Ligang platter. And on any ordinary day, the missings offer apong to only those guests or people whom they find very warm and welcoming. Apong is identified with wealth and affluence actually in the missing society, and it is prepared and consumed as a part of the popular culture of the missings. About 10 to 15 different varieties of plants having immense medicinal value are customarily used in the preparation of apong or haspani by the missings. But of course, this number of plants, they varies from place to place depending upon their availability. Previously, the total number of plants that were used to prepare apong numbered around 50. As per information that was provided to me by a few families during my field visits in Upper Assam, but this is now alarmingly reduced to less than half the number, which is also a matter of serious concern from the point of view of environment and ecology. There are two main varieties of apong which are prepared for serving the guests and visitors on the occasion of Alia Ligang. One is the white colored apong or nogin, and another is the black colored apong or poro. So nogin and poro are the two main varieties of apong which are prepared. The stage-wise preparation of apong, it is a very lengthy and tedious process. It requires freshly harvested rice and paddy husk, which are fermented together for several days with various locally available traditional medicinal herbs that are beneficial for human health. And these herbs are not only used in the preparation of apong, but they are also used for healing wounds and tumors, curing other problems like toothache, fever, cough, diabetes, high blood pressure, etc. But the increasingly reducing number of these plants, as I said, in the recent times, it has become a cause of serious concern for the Missings, whose socio-cultural identity is intertwined actually with these plants at many different levels. And as I've already mentioned, a majority of the Missings in the Brahmaputra Valley, they are still adherents of the Vaishnava Namkirtan Parampara of Srimanta Shankardev. But Christianity is gradually making strong inroads among the Missing population, especially in Dhemaji, Majuli, and Lokhimpur districts of Upper Assam since the last few decades. And the impact of Christianity in the Missing society has been so overwhelming that a certain section of the Missing community has completely given up the drinking of apong and eating pork on the ground that the consumption of these food items is sinful and polluting. So it is a serious threat to an entire culture and civilization that is nature centric and worships nature in all its manifestations. But nevertheless, rice or dhan is an indispensable item in the preparation of apong. Rice straws are first, they are burnt, and then these straws, the burnt rice straws, they are used to obtain chah mod or ash liquor, which is smoky in color. And very important guests are entertained by offering chah mod. The rice straws are later used for the filtration of the apong, which appears a little uh, faint greenish in color in the beginning. There is a tradition among the Missings to use the water with which the rice straws have been washed prior to the preparation of apong for the treatment of stomach related ailments among young kids. And all the elder members of the household and visitors, including near and dear ones, irrespective of age, gender, social status, etc., they are served apong along with rice, fish curry, and smoked pork.
Right. Ankita ji, you were also talking about the missing Gumrag dance in the beginning of this interview. So could you tell us more about this dance and how it actually is a tribute to Bhudevi or Mother Earth, as people call it?
Yeah, yeah. Actually, the dancing rituals of Aliyai Ligang, they begin with utmost joy after the feasting gets over. The cowherd boys, they are invited for the feast, who later groove to the tunes of Gumrag. The entire village adorns a festive look, and everyone gathers in the field to celebrate, sing, and dance. The Missing Gumrag dance is accompanied by appropriate songs, and it represents a beautiful combination of different dance moves that are performed in the background of the continuous beating of drums and cymbals. And although it is performed in its own unique rhythm and style, the Gumrag dance of the Missings shares many things in common with the traditional dances of various other Vanavasi communities in Assam, such as the Dimasas, Rabhas, and Kocharis. There is a particular song called Lo Le that is specifically associated with the Aliyai Ligang festival, and this song called Lo Le is included as a part of the Gumrag dance. In fact, the Missing Gumrag dance is the most spectacular and dominant feature of the entire festival of Aliyai Ligang. It has almost become a mandatory norm for all the dancers who take part in the Gumrag dance to wear only hand-woven dresses as a symbol of their cultural pride and community identity. The dance has been noted for maintaining its authenticity while at the same time displaying the traditional Missing handlooms and handicrafts in all their beauty. And it usually lasts the entire night. Both boys and girls, they gracefully dance in a ring at every house in the village, starting from the easternmost one, which commonly happens to be the house of the village headman or the senior-most person in the village. The Gumrang dance, yes, it is a humble tribute to Bhudevi or Mother Earth for everything that she gives. The dancers are later treated to a delicious course of lunch, followed by the ritualistic drinking of apong or rice beer. There is another Missing group dance called Paksong Moman. Paksong Moman, in which the villagers, both young and old and male and female, actively take part. But it is the young ones who first initiate the dance, and the elder ones, they join in later, following the rhythmical tunes of the musical instruments. Paksong Moman is a dance that is common, in fact, to all the festive celebrations of the Missings, and it is performed at the backyard of their traditional houses called Okums. The missing traditional houses are known as Okums. There are two other beautiful dance forms besides Paksong Moman and Gumrag among the Missings, and these dance forms are Raktup Soman and Loto Soman, and they are performed mainly by the adults of the community inside their houses during Ali Ali Gang. And as I mentioned earlier, the Ali Ali Gang celebrations, they continue for almost a week. The Missings observe a period of abstinence from agriculture-related works, and eventually they ended through a brief religious ceremony called Yodlen Kunam. It calls upon 9 different generations of their ancestors for blessing them with good health and wealth. And this formally marks the end of the Ali Ali Gang celebrations, after which the people start devoting their time in the field for cultivation. One of the significant features of Ali Ali Gang is the worship of the Bihu Devta. Bihu Devta on the last day of the festival, which is known as Lilen. The last day of the festival called Lilen, which in literal terms, it means departing. And people who could not perform the ceremony of ancestor worship and lighting of the diyas on the first day of the festival, for whatever reason, they are socially expected to do it on this day, on the last day. And the spade, which had been kept covered in the field and religiously at rest, is uncovered by removing the leaves on this day. The missing farmer, he goes to the already sown field early in the morning and furrows it. In the afternoon, the field is leveled with the chanting of prayers to Bhudevi. The dancing and feasting celebrations, they continue for the next 2 days as well. And every year, one particular village is selected as the host village for the organization of Lilen. It is enthusiastically celebrated with in fact, the festival comes to an enthusiastic end with a lavish community feast called Dapan Tipan in the courtyards of the village homes of the host village, and villagers from the neighboring villages are also invited as guests to grace this last day of the festival. Young missing boys and girls, they raise a dais to the murti of the Bihu Devta in a nearby forest, and they plant a sapling of the silk cotton tree called Salamali alongside. Because among the missings, this silk cotton tree or Salamali is believed to symbolize an eternal life of good health, wealth, and prosperity. The grand celebrations of Ali Ali Gang, yes, they have served as a beautiful social and cultural identity marker of the missings of both Assam and Arunachal Pradesh. And they have helped in reinforcing socio-cultural harmony, the bonds of fraternity and brotherhood through a cultural convergence of the missing community with the greater Assamese Hindu society. And nowadays, many missing families living outside their home state in faraway towns and cities such as Delhi, for professional obligations, etc., they could also be seen celebrating this festival in different places, where they invite Gumrah dance troops from different places to live in the festive mood.
Right. Ankita ji, let's talk about the recent political developments in Assam right now. There are a lot of eviction drives that are happening, especially at Gorukhuti, within the larger context of the twin problems. And these problems are A, illegal immigrants and infiltration into Assam, and B, there is a huge issue of land encroachment. So could you tell our viewers and give an overview of what the problem is all about?
Yes, yeah, coming directly to the point, actually, the recent eviction which was carried out by the government of Assam at number 3 Dholpur village called Gorukhuti under Sipaja Revenue Circle, it is near Mongoldoi in Dorong district of Lower Assam, and the events that followed in its aftermath, including the firing on police personnel. This is just another, what I would say, another dreadful manifestation of a problem that has been plaguing Assam since the pre-independence era. It is a part of the larger conspiracy of making Assam an Islamic state, often quoted as the policy of 11-0 by several Bangladeshi academics and political leaders on several occasions in the past. And in the post-independence era, this thought process has received academic and moral support from an entire network of self-proclaimed intellectuals within quotes, journalists, writers, public speakers, and a few lawyers and human rights activists as well. They just stubbornly refuse to acknowledge the bitter reality that Assam has been witnessing a slow and silent demographic invasion by hordes of land-hungry Muslims from erstwhile East Bengal, erstwhile East Pakistan, and present-day Bangladesh. And this has been taking place since the time Lord Curzon had clubbed Assam with Eastern Bengal to create a new province in 1905. And although that decision was revoked in 1911, the floodgates have remained open for more than a century now. The Congress party and as well as the communist leaders, they have been very much responsible for providing fuel to such devious political design since a long time now. They are always at the forefront of accusing the common Assamese people of xenophobia and therefore repeatedly targeting one particular religious community, that is the Muslims, in the name of protecting their identity. And no wonder this particular incident at Gorukhuti caught the headlines in international news networks like Al Jazeera TV and Pakistan's Dawn immediately when it happened. And Pakistan even summoned an Indian diplomat to its foreign office and conveyed its concern over the Gorukhuti eviction drive, alleging that the Muslims have been targeted in the state. And he was told that India must investigate the recent anti-Muslim violence in Assam and the perpetrators be punished immediately. Besides he was also asked to undertake several measures to stop such incidents from recurring in the near future. So, I mean, this is a question. Are these again fresh ammunitions to malign India again and accuse the people of Assam in particular of xenophobia in the international platform? Most importantly, the incident that took place at Gorukhuti on the 23rd of September 2021, it again drew our attention to the issue of land, which is the primary target of the encroachers of dubious nationality. And it was a long pending demand of various organizations in Assam as well, including the All Assam Students Union, ASU, to clear the large scale land encroachments that have been taking place in the nearby areas like Kurua, Fuhuratoli, Dholpur under the Sipaja Revenue Circle in Dorong district. The situation of the locals here, it is too despicable to be even described. Dacoities, robberies, rapes and molestations of Hindu girls in broad daylight and various other such antisocial activities, they have become so commonplace in these areas. And it was in this context that, keeping in mind the safety and security of the female school teachers working in the Muslim-dominated areas of Assam, Dr. Himanta Biswa Sharma, as the Education Minister in the cabinet of former Chief Minister Sarbananda Sonowal, he had to personally intervene in this matter. And he had passed an order that allowed for the immediate transfer of these teachers to schools in non-Muslim areas. And I think anyone can gauge the extent of this problem with respect to such a decision that was being made.
Yes. Right. And, Dr. Datta, there is a famous Shiv Mandir near Gorukhuti where the eviction took place. It is said that the lands actually belong to this mandir were also encroached upon by the infiltrators. Can you tell us the chronology of the events that had taken place there?
Yeah. In fact, this district where the eviction took place, Dorong district in Assam, it boasts of a rich Sanatan past, sharing an ancient relationship with Hindu rishis like Agastya Rishi, Atri, Yagyabalka, etc. Its people have they have always stood up for the protection of their rights. And we must not forget that it was from the Mongoldoy Lok Sabha constituency in this same Dorong district that the Assam Agitation had started in 1979 against the influx of illegal Bangladeshi immigrants into Assam. Now, coming to Dholpur, where the eviction took place, Dholpur is a riverine area with an approximately 25,000 acres of land. It is sandwiched between two streams of the Brahmaputra and comprising of several villages such as Puhuratoli, Dholpur, Kurua, Kholihoi, and Bazna Pathar. But Dholpur has been at the center of several conflicts since the 1980s. Coming to the Shiv Mandir, it is a 5,000-year-old Shiv Mandir that is situated atop the nearby scenic Dholpur hill in the middle of the Brahmaputra. It is believed that the mandir was built during the 4th century by people belonging to the Nath Yogi and Kirat communities. The structure of the mandir was destroyed in the 14th century because of a natural calamity. According to historians, it was after this event that the Ahom kings began looking after this mandir for a long period of time. And later, other Nepali kings and a few kings of the Koch Rajbangshi kingdom as well, they were great devotees of this mandir. The Dholpur Shiv Mandir, it is one of the primary religious destinations of Hindus in Dorang district. The relics that can be seen in the mandir, they include various beautiful designs of stone architecture in the pillars and the basement, floral and animal motifs, brick walls, etc. The stone remnants of Dholpur, they could be dated between the 8th to 9th centuries AD, and the brick remains are assigned to the period between the 17th to 18th centuries AD. Land belonging to the Dholpur Shiv Mandir has also been encroached upon by the infiltrators. And during the recent eviction drive, 4 illegally constructed masjids were also destroyed in this place. The mandir is now under tight security arrangements due to the frequent eviction drives that have been taking place in this area since the coming to power of Chief Minister Dr. Himanta Biswa Sharma. Going back to history, it began during the late 1970s actually, when many Bengali-speaking Muslim families, they had migrated from Nagaon district in central Assam and settled in different areas of Dorong district, including Dholpur and Sipajhar, through land encroachment. Till 1979, there were only 37 such families who migrated from Nagaon. But by the end of 1981, several hundreds of families were settled in Dholpur by the then Congress governments at both the state and the center through different ways of land encroachment and of course political patronage. Their first target was the age-old Dholpur Shiv Mandir and its land. 180 bighas of land that belonged to this mandir were initially encroached upon, and later the entire area, which amounts to more than 77,000 bighas of land, was encroached by thousands of families who were suspected to have migrated from outside the country. At first, the big trees inside the mandir complex, they were cut down and felled, and all valuables belonging to the mandir were looted by miscreants. Till 1979, the plain areas of the Dholpur hills, they happened to be the farmlands of people, mostly Assamese and Nepali Hindus, and hundreds of them, including their families, operated their dairy farms. They made use of their earnings from their dairy related activities to take care of the daily expenses of the Shiv Mandir. And therefore, this area is popularly known as Goru Khuti, literally meaning cow farm in English, Goru Khuti. Right. Now, at the peak of the Assam agitation in 1983, at this time, Assam was burning day in and day out against the issue of infiltration from Bangladesh. Former Prime Minister Indira Gandhi visited this area where the eviction took place, and she expressed her solidarity with the illegal settlers. She arrived in Assam for a 3-day tour to inspect the refugee camps and also addressed a rally at a place called Saulkhua Sapori, which is adjacent to this Dholpur Shiv Mandir. And she later handed over tin sheets for the construction of houses, blankets, food, and other relief material to people who had come from various areas in Assam to settle at Dholpur. Right. It was on the 15th of February 1983 that the encroachers brutally killed several local Hindus of the area for protesting against the occupation of their lands by illegal intruders in and around Dholpur and Rangamati areas, causing massive outrage. A very important event which many people do not know, or they are not being let known about these facts. The head Pujari of the Shiv Mandir, Shiva Das, he was killed by unknown assailants. Another Pujari, Kartik Das, he escaped to a nearby village to save his life and property. The Pujari who was dead, the deceased Pujari, Shiva Das, He was declared as one among the 855 martyrs of the 6-year-long Assam agitation. Shockingly, in a very shocking incident, after the demise of Kartik Das, the other Pujari, in the year 2011, he died in 2011, his widowed wife was forced to marry a Muslim man, and she and all her 3 children were soon converted into Islam. So the threats that are being continuously posed to the lives, livelihoods, and properties of the non-Muslims in Muslim-dominated areas, I mean, not just in Assam, but across the entire world, they do not require any further elaboration. And years later, these very Muslim settlers in Dholpur, Gorukhuti encroached upon the lands of the native inhabitants and began occupying more and more farming land that was owned by the locals, but who did not necessarily reside in the vicinity. And 10 years later, after this incident in 1993, the Congress government allotted 5 bighas of land each to 199 Bengali Muslim families in Puhuratoli. But the very next year, that is in 1994, this was found to be illegal as the area happened to be a VGR or Village Grazing Reserve. Right. Although eviction orders were issued, but no serious action was taken, and the illegal settlers continued to thrive all these years. In 2013, it was found through an RTI application that almost 77,420 bighas of government land had been encroached upon in this area. And 2 years later, in February 2015, the president of Dakshin Mangoldoi Gwala Sanstha had filed a case under the Assam Land Grabbing Prohibition Act of 2010 in the Mangoldoi District Court, seeking the immediate eviction of illegal occupants from the 77,420 bighas of land. Then it was in 2017, one Ananda Das of Kurua village. He was murdered by suspected illegal infiltrators and land encroachers. This gruesome episode ended with the eviction of 60 families from the area. In 2020, another person named Lalit Das of Kurua village went missing. It was later claimed by the locals that he had been killed by the illegal encroachers. Then in June 2021, 49 families were evicted by the district administration to clear 180 bighas of land claimed by the committee in charge of the management of the Dholpur Shiv Mandir. But locals claim that the evicted families returned to the same place soon after. But since its very first term in 2016, the ruling BJP government has pledged to remove encroachers from government lands and lands belonging to Hindu religious institutions. It formed the basis of the BJP's 2021 poll promise as well. The previous BJP government under former Chief Minister Shri Sarbananda Sonowal ji had carried out eviction drives to remove squatter settlements from the Kaziranga National Park as well, and also from those lands belonging to the Botadroba Than, which is the birthplace of Mahapurush Himanta Shankardev. And earlier this year, Assam Chief Minister Dr. Himanta Biswa Sharma had announced that government lands all over the state would be freed from encroachment. And over 400 bighas or roughly 132 acres of encroached land have already been freed in Hojai, Karimganj and Dorong districts. I mean, the real problem of encroachment of government lands started assuming serious proportions since 1971. And the unabated flow of infiltrators from Bangladesh is one of the root causes of this problem. Land is the most valuable and prized possession for these infiltrators, and many a times it is also noticed that they are even ready to die than losing their land. I mean, the brutal attack on the state police forces by a mob of protesters using sharp weapons, sticks, and machetes during the Dholpur evictions is a case in point. They pelted stones at the police and began to attack them. And the common people who were present at the spot at that time were also attacked. It eventually resulted in 11 policemen and a few civilians too being critically injured. So this is the story actually.
Thank you so much for sharing that, Dr. Dutta. In fact, this is such a surprise and a shock to many outside of Assam and many who are not aware of the particular angle that you've just described, because Prime Minister Indira Gandhi used illegal immigration as a pretext to liberate Bangladesh. I mean, that was the front and the reason with which we actually went into East Pakistan. And in fact, there is a much more sinister pattern that emerges post 1971. And this is something that has not been spoken about enough in our history. Dr. Dutta, my question to you is, What role do you see the PFI playing in the entire incident? And if I'm not mistaken, even Chief Minister Himanta Biswa Sarma has spoken about this earlier.
Yes. Yeah, actually, because certain shocking revelations later came to light after the Gorukuti eviction drive that pointed fingers at the role of the PFI, the Popular Front of India, behind instigating the encroachers to fire at the police. And CM Himanta Biswa Sharma himself said that the situation at Dholpur turned hostile because of the presence of a third force. Now, who was this third force? A team of the Popular Front of India, PFI, as it was also reported in several newspapers, including the Assam Tribune. A team of the PFI had visited the area a day before the incident on the pretext of distributing food items. The Chief Minister also said that at least 6 persons had together collected rupees 28 lakhs from the encroachers at Gorukuti in Dholpur on the ground of stopping the eviction. Now, earlier, the state government had sent a dossier to the center seeking an immediate ban on the PFI, especially after its activists were arrested during the CAA agitation in Assam. The landless people in Gorukuti, they were promised 6 bighas of land as per the state's land policy, and they had also eagerly they assured to vacate the encroached land, and they had come into a certain sort of understanding with the district administration, and the eviction went off peacefully on the first day. But it was on the second day that people from other nearby districts had also gathered in the area, and instigated by some outside forces, as explained by the chief minister, a violent clash erupted. Only 60 families were left to be evicted on the second day. But all of a sudden, around 1,000 protesters, they suddenly surfaced with weapons and began attacking the security forces. And this kind of attack by such encroachers is a common sight nowadays in Assam. It proves the point that the violence which occurred at Gorukuti was not a one-way traffic, but there were many fringe elements and organizations involved which instigated the encroachers, who were given multiple notices beforehand. The security forces had no choice left. Earlier, when eviction operations were undertaken against indigenous people who were mostly non-Muslims in places like Amchang and other places like Laika Dodhia, big buildings and structures were destroyed and occupants were evicted, but there was no violence. Even though the evicted people in these places like Amchang, they were not given any alternative sites of settlement. But in the case of Gorukuti, the encroachers had already been shown an alternative site for relocation. But despite all of that, they resorted to violence. The protesters were demanding rehabilitation of nearly 800 families who were evicted by the administration from the nearby areas. The evicted families, they also demanded that further eviction be stopped in other areas of the state and they be provided with a comprehensive rehabilitation package. And later, several Muslim organizations, including the All Assam Minority Students Union or AMSU, then the Sankhya Laghu Sangram Parishad, besides the Congress Party, demanded rehabilitation and other essential support services to the evicted people. A few members of the Congress Party even termed the police firing during the evictions as a barbaric and inhuman act. Then Twitter threads of Assam horror, Hindutva state terror immediately started doing the rounds in social media while the eviction drive was still going on. Maulana Badruddin Ajmal's AIUDF, All India United Democratic Front, even went on to allege that Chief Minister Dr. Himanta Biswa Sharma is trying to convert Assam into a police state. The left parties also condemned the incident of police firing on the protesters to divert people's attention away from the fact that the encroachers were actually the ones who targeted the police in the first place. And it was only in self-defense that the police opened fire. The All India Kisan Sabha, AIKS, it went a step further and demanded immediate dismissal of the state government and resignation of Dr. Himanta Biswa Sharma, who also holds the home portfolio.
Right. Very interesting. I mean, it comes barely as a surprise that these parties are demanding for that. But that apart, from what you say, Dr. Datta, it is very evident that Assam is going through a severe identity crisis. If I'm sure you agree with me. And these stem from two problems that you primarily point to. One is land grabbing, and the other one is the illegal infiltration by these people. How best can we identify a solution, and what is the solution going forward? What can the government do?
Yeah, actually, very true. I completely agree with you because Assam's fight today is equally against the encroachers as much as it is against their patronizers. And these patronizers are the people who are occupying some top posts in the bureaucracy, in the academia, in think tanks, in politics, etc. And they are adept at the art of crafting an anti-Hindu narrative and the propaganda of Muslim victimhood politics every time an eviction drive takes place. So what recently happened at Gorokhuti was nothing but only a small glimpse of the growing political and financial influence of the infiltrators or encroachers. Land is their primary target and will continue to remain ever so. The BJP-led alliance, it has vowed to protect the Jati, Mati and Bheti. Jati means community, Mati means land and Bheti means home of the Assamese people. But the infiltrators are hell-bent on wiping out all traces of the same Jati Mati Bheti every single day. Uh, One advocate of the Supreme Court of India, Upamanyu Hazarika, he had earlier informed that there exist a few villages in the same Dorong district of Lower Assam where immigrants not only outnumber the natives, but the natives, they have been actually pushed into ghetto like dwellings in their own ancestral abode, and the ramifications of this unabated infiltration of people have now come to severely bear upon the vital statistics of the state in terms of basic self-sufficient sustenance. The crime patterns in many places have vastly changed. Forced abductions and conversion of Hindu girls and even married Hindu women into Islam have become a routine problem. And it would perhaps not be an exaggeration to say that not a single Hindu mandir, especially in districts like Dhubri and Borpeta, the districts which share a border with Bangladesh, has been spared by thieves and burglars. So, accordingly, the trend of democratic politics has also changed in Assam over the years. I mean, going back to history, the unfulfilled dream of people like Muhammad Ali Jinnah and Moinul Haq Chaudhary and the entire Muslim League to include Assam in Bangladesh is continuously being pursued. Therefore, issues related to land have always been complex affairs. And this is especially true in a state like Assam, where demographic change over the past several decades has been mostly artificially engineered. The modus operandi of the infiltrators is to grab the land of the native residents of the area by whatever means they can apply. And in many instances, they also try to legally possess cultivable land. The process of completely evicting the illegal infiltrators from their lands is long term because these are mostly government lands where they have encroached, or lands which have been procured through land mafias who force the owners of these lands to sell them at throwaway prices. In the recent incident at Gorokhuti, the police perhaps believed that the migrants would be deterred by the show of force and were therefore unprepared for the kind of mob reprisal which actually took place that day. But could the district administration really would have been able to avert the whole imbroglio? That is the question. Had they been better prepared for it? Because several episodes in the socio-political history of Assam in the past, they are proof enough of the fact that these encroachers are not the ones who would give up their land holdings so easily. Right. And land encroachment by illegal settlers, it has now become a question of existential survival for the common Assamese people. The Assam movement, the Brahma Committee report on land rights that we have, Upamanyu Hazarika's one-man commission on border sealing, the National Register of Citizens, NRC, the anti-CA movement, and most recently, the Clause 6 recommendations of the Assam Accord of 1985, they all had the immigration issue as a contributory factor at the very least. The Upamanyu Hazarika Commission report even mentioned that illegal immigration from Bangladesh is threatening to reduce the indigenous population of Assam to a minority in their own homeland by the year 2047. Then former Chief Election Commissioner H.S. Brahma, who headed the Committee for the Protection of Land Rights of Indigenous People that was constituted by the Sarbanandu Sonowal government in 2016, it had submitted a report to the government of Assam which gave a detailed account of the problem of land encroachment in the state. And in its report, the committee gave a series of recommendations on amending the land laws. It had estimated that around 63 lakh bighas of government land was under illegal occupation in Assam. And this is an area are twice the size of Goa, as mentioned in the report. And as per this report, the total area encroached upon includes 3,172 square kilometers of forested lands, besides the huge tracts of land belonging to the Vaishnavite satras, namghars, and mandirs that have been encroached by infiltrators. And it also mentioned that the people of Assam, as you have also already said, they are facing a serious crisis of identity as their land has been encroached upon. The report specifically observed that in case no effective constitutional, legal, and administrative steps, including sealing of the Indo-Bangladesh border and detection and deportation of the illegal infiltrators are taken, unless these steps are taken, the indigenous people of Assam are bound to be reduced to a landless class of people and become foreigners in their own homes. And this report also pointed out one very important fact, that all lands in the riverine areas or the char areas of Assam are settled by a well-established institution known as the Matabbar or Diwani. And for all practical purposes, this Matabbar or Diwani plays the role of the government. It makes out allotments of land to the Muslims. They are landlords with sprawling estates wielding tremendous political and financial clout, which dissuades others from actually raising a voice against them. The socio-political and economic lives of the people of the state have been affected in many different and complex ways because of such land grabbing. And politically motivated narratives such as religious intolerance, violation of human rights, discrimination against Muslims, etc., they have been deliberately woven in order to hide the real problem that no longer can be understood simply as a Hindu-Muslim concern. It has more to do with the land rights of the common people of Assam and the constant threat posed to their lives and livelihoods by the infiltrators. Right. So fiction drives in Assam have to be a continuous process in the larger interest of freeing the local people's lands and government lands, which have been forcefully occupied by the illegal Bangladeshis for several years now. And at a time when the issue of migration has challenged global political systems in the West, not expecting a popular reaction from the common people of Assam is too naive actually, because in a state like Assam, almost 1/3 of the population has become that of migrants. And there has been a disproportionate increase, I would say, in the Muslim population of Assam over the past few decades. And the demographic change is starkly visible. So this brings us to the last question: what can be a permanent and long-term solution to the problem of land encroachment by infiltrators in Assam? So what we need to accept here is that over the years, the problem of encroachment of government lands in several areas of Assam never fell in the government's priority list actually of the previous governments. And till date, a thorough survey of the people in districts like Dhubri, South Salmara, Mankachar, Borpeta, Gwalpara, which share a border with Bangladesh, including Nagaon district in central Assam, etc., a thorough survey of the people in these districts who became landless due to Islamic demographic invasion has not been carried out. So this has only expanded this problem because it has left enough space for the encroachers to claim that they are erosion hit people. And one of the possible solutions to this problem can be that the state government can carry out a thorough survey of all the landless people in the state and allot small plots of land to them. And after this is done, there must be strict vigilance and no one should be allowed to encroach upon government lands, because it is seen that those evicted usually encroach upon lands elsewhere again very soon. So undoubtedly, large scale encroachment of government lands, including forest lands, could not have been possible in the past without political patronage. The situation is dangerous all over the state, particularly in 8 to 10 districts of Lower Assam. And as per the census data of 2011, 2021 is still not out. As per the census data of 2011, districts like Borpeta, Bongaigaon, Dorong, Dhubri, Gwalpara, Hailakandi, Karimganj, Morigaon, Nagaon, they have been most seriously affected because of the demographic change. And these are also the districts which have contributed in a large measure to the changing religious demographic pattern of Assam. So the recent incident at Gorukhuti under Sipaja Revenue Circle in Dorong district of Lower Assam and the subsequent events that unfolded as I have described, it has once again demonstrated that there is just no alternative to a protective legislation for safeguarding the land and livelihood rights of the common people of Assam. Because if a protective legislation reserving land for the native people is put in place, then those of Bangladeshi origin would no longer be able to acquire permanent rights over land. And detailed recommendations in this regard have been given by the committee constituted under Clause 6 of the Assam Accord by the central government, because it has recommended reservation of land, employment and trade based on an NRC that is carried out with 1951 and not 1971 as the base year. Encroachment is an offense under the Assam Land Grabbing Act of 2010 with a maximum punishment of 5 years. And over and above this, when encroachers attack police personnel undertaking eviction operations, it constitutes yet another offense.
Right. Thank you so much, Dr. Ankita Dutta, for joining us today and giving us such clarity about what is happening in Assam. And this is definitely a disturbing development, and it's a very unfortunate situation that we haven't been able to address since the last 4 or 5 decades. Now, things do seem a little promising with the BJP government in Assam under the leadership of Dr. Himanta Biswa Sarma, but one can only wait and watch what will unfold. And I hope you can join us again for a conversation as events unfold in Assam. And thank you so much for taking your time out today, and namaste.
Namaste. Thank you.
And to all our viewers, please do like, share and subscribe to Citti Media and the Festival of Bharat. We will be bringing you more updates on this issue very soon. Until then, this is your host Sharan Citti signing off.
Namaste. We hope you enjoyed this Citti Media content. Please remember to subscribe to us and switch on the notifications for this channel. For our other social media links, more content and to support our work, please visit citti.net. Dhanyavad. Namaskar.